Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show that cuts through the noise and gets straight to the core of what you need to know. Have you noticed how generative AI seems to be absolutely everywhere you look?
Oh, yeah. It's impossible to miss.
Right. It's not just tech headlines anymore. It's, trending on social media. Your colleagues are probably experimenting with it. Maybe you are too. But, beyond all the buzz, what's actually happening on the ground? What does it really mean for how people work today, right now?
That's exactly the question, isn't it? The buzz is one thing, but to really understand the impact, we need to look past the speculation, look at the actual evidence of how it's being used in the real world.
I agree completely. And today, we're diving deep into I think a truly groundbreaking study from Microsoft Research. It's called Working with AI, Measuring the Occupational Implications of Generative AI. And this isn't just about predictions or, theoretical models. It's a serious analysis based on hundreds of thousands of actual, real-world conversations between users and an AI system. It gives us a direct window into what people are doing with AI right now.
And maybe even more fascinating, what the AI itself is capable of doing in those interactions. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is really to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from this, let's be honest, pretty complex research.
It is dense, yeah.
We want to give you a shortcut, basically, to being genuinely well-informed about AI's current impact on the economy, on the workforce. Maybe offer some surprising facts and hopefully a few aha moments that might, reframe how you think about this tech.
That's the goal, to get beyond the surface level.
We're going to unpack this study layer by layer. We'll start with how these researchers even managed to set this whole thing up. Then we'll explore which specific work activities AI is currently affecting most. And by extension, which jobs with occupations are really feeling that ripple effect. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so to kick things off, the paper starts by framing generative AI as what they call a general-purpose technology. They liken it to historical game changers, the steam engine, electricity, maybe even the personal computer. What is that concept, a general-purpose technology, what does that really imply about how we should think about its potential impact?
That's a really foundational concept for understanding just how significant generative AI might be. A general purpose technology, or BPT for short, isn't just, another small improvement.
Right, yeah.
These are technologies that historically have been massive drivers of economic growth precisely because they aren't limited to just one industry or one application. Think about the steam engine.
Okay.
It didn't just power one kind of factory. It completely changed manufacturing. It transformed transportation with trains and ships. It even shifted agriculture or electricity. It wasn't just for light bulbs, right? It reshaped everything from industrial production to how we live at home.
So it's not just a niche tool for one specific job. It's something that fundamentally changes the landscape across pretty much everything, a real foundational shift.
Exactly. The key thing about a GPT is its pervasive impact across a huge range of sectors. And crucially, its influence often accelerates with each new development. Generative AI, with its ability to speed up or improve all sorts of different tasks, from complex things like helping with medical diagnosis or drug discovery, down to everyday stuff like drafting emails, writing code, generating images, it fits this description perfectly. It's not about one specific use. It's about a fundamental capability that can be applied in so many different ways, and it keeps finding new areas to be useful.
And the relevance for us, for you listening, is right there in just how fast it's being adopted, isn't it? The study mentions other research pick and colleagues in 2024 saying nearly 40% of Americans report already using generative AI at home or work. That feels incredibly fast.
It is incredibly fast. I mean, put that 40% in perspective. The spread of generative AI is actually outpacing the growth of even the personal computer and the internet in their early days.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Think how long it took for PCs or the internet to reach that kind of penetration. This rapid uptake means generative AI isn't some, far-off future thing discussed in labs. It's already part of the daily lives and work routines for a big chunk of the population.
So it's behaving like a true general-purpose technology already.
That rapid, widespread use is a really clear indicator, yes. It's quickly weaving itself into the fabric of society and the economy.
That's incredible. It's not if it's here, but how it's here and what it's doing. Which brings us to the data source for this study. This is where it gets really interesting for me. They're not just guessing what people might do with AI, they're looking at what people are actually doing. How on earth do they capture that kind of real-world data?
This is what makes the study so powerful and, frankly, unique. The researchers analyzed this massive data set, 200,000 anonymized and privacy-scrubbed conversations, real interactions between users and Microsoft Bing Copilot, which is now just called Microsoft Copilot for clarity.
Okay.
These conversations were sampled representatively over 9 months in 2024, and they focus specifically on usage within the United States. So, yeah, this isn't hypothetical. It's not surveys asking what would you do. It's direct empirical usage data.
An unfiltered window, really.
Absolutely, and an
Yeah.
unprecedented look at how people are genuinely interacting with a mainstream AI system day to day.
And they made a really crucial analytical distinction within these conversations, didn't they? They separated what the human user is trying to achieve from what the AI itself is actually performing. Can you unpack those two different ways a conversation can affect the workforce?
Yeah, absolutely. And this distinction is, I think, one of the key insights of their whole approach. It allows for a much more nuanced understanding. So first, there's the user goal.
Okay.
This is the task the human user is trying to accomplish with the AI's help. So imagine you're a marketing person trying to figure out how to structure an email campaign for a new client list. Your goal is to develop a marketing strategy. The AI is assisting you with your task.
Got it. My goal.
Then second, there's the AI action. This describes the specific task the AI itself performs during that same conversation. So in that marketing example, while your goal is the strategy, the AI's action might be, say, gather information from various sources by pulling data on similar campaigns, or maybe write material for commercial purposes by drafting some initial email templates based on what you asked it.
Ah, okay. So the user is trying to do something and the AI is performing a specific service or task in response to that.
Exactly. The user is driving, the AI is executing specific actions in service of that drive.
That's a brilliant way to look at it. It immediately makes you think, is the AI doing the whole job or is it just helping me do my job better? Really sharpens the focus.
Precisely. And that distinction is crucial for understanding the real impact on the workforce because it relates directly to that whole public debate. Is AI automating tasks doing the work itself, or is it augmenting human capabilities helping the user do their work?
Right. Automation versus augmentation.
By carefully separating user goal from AI action, the study gives us a much clearer picture of both sides of that coin, how AI interacts with human work.
So once they had these hundreds of thousands of conversations, how do they actually measure the impact on specific jobs? I mean, it can't be as simple as just counting interactions, right?
Oh, definitely not. It was far more sophisticated. They used a methodology that connects directly with the ONET database. Now, for listeners who might not know, ONET is this huge U.S. Department of Labor database. It's like a giant dictionary of jobs, and it breaks down occupations hierarchically into really specific work activities.
Like super granular tasks.
Exactly. They focused on what ONET calls intermediate work activities, or IWs. Think of these as very specific, granular tasks that make up a job. There are hundreds of them. Things like writing reports, analyzing data, scheduling appointments, or training new employees. Really specific stuff.
And they somehow classified all 200,000 conversations into these specific IWAs, both the user goal and the AI action. That sounds like a massive job.
It absolutely was. For every single one of those conversations, they used advanced AI models, specifically a system based on GPT-4o as a kind of classification pipeline. It meticulously identified all the relevant IWOs that matched both the user's stated goal and the AI's performed action within that conversation.
Wow.
And this automated process wasn't just left unchecked. It was rigorously validated by human annotators to make sure it was consistent and accurate across that enormous data set. That provided the solid foundation for their analysis.
Okay, so they have all these tasks classified. How do they then quantify AI's overall applicability to a specific occupation? How do you boil that down to a score that reflects the real impact?
They developed this really insightful metric they call the AI applicability score for each occupation. And it's clever because it goes way beyond just counting how often AI pops up. It captures whether there's meaningful AI usage for a job's key activities, and crucially, how successfully and how broadly those activities are impacted. It has three main components feeding into it.
Okay, what are they?
So first, there's activity share, which you can kind of think of as coverage. This just measures how often a specific IWA, like writing an email, actually appears in the Copilot conversations they analyzed. They set a low threshold, basically, to make sure they were only focusing on tasks that showed up reasonably often, filtering out really rare uses that might just be noise.
Makes sense. Focus on what's common.
Second, there's task success, or you could call it the completion rate. This is about how well the AI actually assisted or performed the task. They looked at two things here. Direct user feedback in Copilot, the thumbs up, thumbs down buttons people actually click.
Right.
And also an internal AI classifier, like a smaller AI model, to objectively judge if the user's tasks seem to be completed or addressed based on the conversation flow. So it gives a sense of how well the AI is doing from the user's point of view.
Right. Is it actually helpful?
And third, this one's particularly interesting, is scope of impact. For each IWA they identified, they assessed how much of the work within that specific task the AI showed it could assist with or perform. So take a task like researching a topic. Did the AI just give one quick factoid, or did it help with a significant chunk of the research process, identifying sources, summarizing findings, that kind of thing?
So how deep does its capability go for that task?
It was rated on a scale from none to complete. This helps distinguish between AI giving a tiny bit of info versus assisting with a really large fraction of that whole work activity.
So if I'm getting this right, they've built this incredibly clever system. It sees not just if AI is involved in a job's tasks, but how much of the task it handles and how well it performs that help across all these very specific work activities. That feels like a huge leap beyond just abstract predictions.
You've got it perfectly. The final AI applicability score for any given occupation is then calculated by combining these three things: the weighted fraction of a job's key tasks that are covered by AI usage, multiplied by how often those tasks are successfully completed, and the scope of impact AI has on them. It's designed to give a rich relative comparison between occupations.
Relative being the key word there.
Absolutely. It lets us understand which jobs are more or less impacted by current AI usage patterns compared to others.
And it's really important to hammer home a key caveat the authors themselves make crystal clear. This data is purely about AI usage. They explicitly state they have zero data on whether this usage actually leads to job loss or job creation or changes in wages. This isn't a crystal ball predicting the future of work.
That is such a critical point for everyone listening to keep in mind. The study focuses entirely on demonstrated capabilities and actual usage patterns, not the downstream economic consequences.
Right.
The authors are very careful to point out that any absolute numbers, like saying X% of the workforce is affected, can be super sensitive to the specific thresholds and definitions you choose. You could change a threshold slightly and get a wildly different percentage. So making relative statements like occupation A seems more impacted by AI than occupation B based on current usage is much more meaningful and robust than trying to draw absolute conclusions about job displacement from this specific data set. They're not taking sides on the automation versus augmentation fight. They're just providing objective data on what AI can do now and how people are using it.
Got it. Crucial context. Okay, with that robust methodology understood, let's zoom out for a second. Let's look at the big picture. What did they find about the broad types of work activities, these generalized work activities, or GWAs, where Copilot is currently being most actively used?
Yeah, looking at that high-level view is really revealing. When you compare how often these broad work activities show up in Copilot usage versus how common they are in the overall U.S. workforce, some very clear patterns jump out about AI's current strengths and, just as importantly, its current limitations.
Okay, so where is it strong?
Well, on the side of AI's significant strengths, you see activities that are way more prevalent in the Copilot conversations than you'd expect based on the general workforce. These are things like getting information, interpreting information, thinking creatively, updating and using knowledge, and working with computers.
That sounds overwhelmingly like knowledge work.
Exactly. It points directly and strongly towards knowledge work. These are tasks mainly dealing with ideas, data, information, often involving non-routine problem-solving, abstract thought things that large language models like Copilot are, particularly well suited for. If your day involves a lot of reading, writing, analyzing, brainstorming, AI is likely already playing a significant role.
So if your job is about thinking, analyzing complex stuff, synthesizing information, generating new ideas, AI is already deeply involved in those activities. It's a powerful tool for the mind workers, as you might call them.
Precisely. But conversely, the study also clearly highlights AI's current limitations, especially for these LLM-type AIs.
Right. Where does it fall short?
We find that activities like handling and moving objects and performing general physical activities, basically manual labor and physical manipulation, are far, far less common in the Copilot data.
Makes sense.
Similarly, monitoring processes, materials, or surroundings and controlling machines and processes, which involve direct observation or precise operation of physical systems, are also much less common. It's intuitive, really. A conversational AI chatbot just isn't built for physical tasks. You wouldn't ask Copilot to, operate a crane or monitor a chemical reaction on a factory floor.
Yeah, that's a pretty straightforward limitation tied right to what the technology is.
Yeah.
But what about that interesting dynamic you mentioned earlier, the difference between what users are trying to do versus what the AI is actually doing at this broad level? That seems like where the roles really start to diverge.
This is where you really see that AI as a service role emerge clearly. When we compare the AI actions to the user goals for these broad activities, we find that things like assisting and caring for others, providing consultation and advice to others, coaching and developing others, and communicating with people outside the organization are significantly more common as AI actions than as user goals.
So the AI is doing the advising, the coaching.
Exactly. It suggests the AI is often performing these service or advisory activities for the user. It's acting like a digital assistant or consultant in those moments.
Okay, and what about the other way around? Where are user goals stronger?
On the flip side, activities like getting information, thinking creatively, updating and using knowledge, making decisions, and analyzing data are more common as user goals than AI actions.
Ah, so the human is trying to do the thinking, the deciding, the analyzing.
Right. It tells us the user is often aiming to accomplish these higher-level cognitive tasks, and the AI is assisting them by performing specific supportive actions, like fetching information or drafting text.
Okay, so humans are using the AI to help execute complex knowledge work. And the AI is disproportionately helping by gathering info, explaining things, communicating to them or for them. That's a powerful takeaway. It's not the AI doing the whole job alone, but enabling the human to do their knowledge work better, faster.
Precisely. You can almost picture the human as the driver,
Yeah.
setting the destination, steering, while the AI is this incredibly efficient co-pilot, handling navigation, crunching information, drafting communications to make the journey smoother.
A co-pilot, not the pilot. I like that. Now, let's get into the real nitty-gritty. What exactly are people asking Copilot to help with, and what is Copilot actually doing at that more specific granular level of those intermediate work activities, the IWAs? This is where the practical stuff becomes really clear, right?
It absolutely is. When you dive into the specifics, separating user goals from AI actions, you get a very detailed picture of how AI is being used right now.
So what are the top user goals? What are people actually trying to achieve?
Okay. On the user goals side, what humans are most often trying to do with Copilot's help, it falls into pretty clear buckets. First, there's a huge focus on gathering and processing information.
Like research.
Exactly. Activities like gather information from various sources, obtain information about goods or services, maintain current knowledge in area of expertise, and even just read documents or materials. It highlights Copilot being used as a powerful on-demand research assistant, helping people quickly sift through information.
Okay, what else?
Second, there's a really strong emphasis on writing, editing, and content development. Think tasks like develop news, entertainment, or artistic content, write material for artistic or commercial purposes, edit written materials or documents. We even see create visual designs or displays here, though we'll see later that performance varies, but people are definitely using it to help create and refine content.
Drafting emails, reports, blog posts, that kind of thing.
Yep. All stages, from brainstorming to polishing. And third, there's significant demand for help with communicating to others. Common tasks here are things like provide information to clients' customers, provide information assistance to the public, explain technical details of product services, and explain regulations, policies, procedures. People want AI's help to craft clear, accurate communications.
So users are mainly focused on getting information, creating stuff with it, and then communicating it effectively. That covers a massive amount of professional work. What about the AI side? What specific services is it providing in these chats?
The AI action side tells a really interesting complementary story. It really shows the AI in that service role we talked about. The most frequent things the AI is actually doing generally involve, first, gathering and reporting information. This mirrors the user goal somewhat, with activities like gather information from various sources, prepare informational instructional materials, and develop news, entertainment, or artistic content. The AI is actively sourcing, compiling, and synthesizing info for the user.
Okay.
Second, explaining information. Prominent actions here are present research or technical information. explain technical details of product services, and explain regulations, policies, procedures. The AI is acting like an explainer, simplifying complex topics, maybe giving tutorials, clarifying rules.
Like a built-in tutor or expert.
Sort of, yeah. And third, communicating with the user. This covers actions like respond to customer problems or inquiries, provide general assistance to others, provide information to clients' customers, and advise others on products or services. Here, the AI is directly interacting, answering questions, offering guidance, making the exchange happen.
It sounds like there's definitely overlap between user goals and AI actions, but also some maybe subtle, maybe not so subtle differences in emphasis.
You've hit on a really crucial point, the asymmetry. What's truly fascinating here is that the study found the surprising disconnect. In as many as 40% of the conversations, the specific work activities listed for the user goal and the AI action were completely different. Disjoint sets, they called it.
Wait, 40%? That seems really high. So the AI often isn't doing the exact same task the user is trying to accomplish.
Exactly. It's not just a simple mirror. The AI isn't just doing what the user is trying to do. In fact, for most conversations, the overlap in specific tasks was quite low. The Jacquard index, a measure of similarity, was less than 0.5 for 96% of conversations.
Wow. Okay, so what does that asymmetry tell us about the emerging roles, the human-AI collaboration?
It reveals this really clear division of labor developing. The AI often tends to step into more of an advising, teaching, or explaining role, while the user side involves more of the obtaining information, consuming content, reading, researching side of things.
So the AI teaches, the human learns and applies.
In a way, yes. And the study gives clear examples of where this difference is extreme. For instance, activities that are more often assisted by AI, meaning the user goal is way more common than the AI action typically involve a physical component or interaction with outside entities the AI just can't do.
Right.
Like perform athletic activities, operate office equipment, purchase goods or services, or execute financial transactions. The AI can absolutely help with these, give instructions, advice, find information. You can ask Copilot for workout advice, but it won't lift the weights for you.
Right. It can tell you how to fix the printer, but it won't actually swap the cartridge.
Exactly. Now, conversely, activities more often performed by AI, where the AI action is way more common than the user goal, are overwhelmingly things related to training, coaching, teaching, and advising. Think about how often the AI is recorded doing things like train others, provide general assistance to others, coach others, or teach academic or vocational subjects. In these cases, the AI is literally acting as the tutor, the mentor, the consultant, delivering the expertise or guidance directly.
So AI is truly acting as this knowledge conduit, this advisor, empowering the human to handle the more hands-on, physical, or externally facing parts of a task.
Yeah.
That's a powerful insight into the current division of labor. It really does sound like a
She
partnership.
strongly suggests that, yes.
Okay, so beyond just using AI for these tasks, the really important question for anyone integrating this stuff is, how well is it actually performing? The study looked at satisfaction and completion rates. What did they find? Are people generally happy with Copilot's help?
Overall, the answer seems to be generally yes. People do find it helpful. The study found that for most of the common work activities, the positive feedback share, that thumbs up rate, was 50% or higher. That's a decent baseline indicating real utility.
I sense a but coming.
Well, yes. When you dig down, you see some really interesting variations in satisfaction and completion across different types of activities. It highlights where AI is currently excelling and where it's, well, still has some room to grow.
Okay, so where does it shine? High satisfaction.
On the high satisfaction and completion side, activities involving writing and editing text score really well. Tasks like edit written materials or documents and write material for artistic or commercial purposes get very positive feedback. This totally aligns with how many people use LLMs, right? Drafting emails, reports, marketing stuff, creative writing.
Definitely. That feels right.
Researching information also scores highly. Things like research healthcare issues or research laws. This underscores AI's strength as that rapid info retrieval and summarization tool we talked about. And maybe a bit surprisingly, activities like evaluate characteristics of products and purchase goods or services also show high completion rates.
Why is that surprising?
Well, you might think purchasing is complex, but it's likely because the AI can quickly pull up comparisons, reviews, or step-by-step instructions that really help the user complete their evaluation or buying task, even if the AI isn't clicking buy.
Ah, I see. It makes the human's task easier to complete.
Uh-huh.
So it seems Copilot is proving to be a fantastic copilot for writing and research, really helping people get those things done. But where does it, stumble a bit? Where are users less satisfied?
Okay. The low satisfaction and completion activities consistently pop up in areas like data analysis and visual design.
Hmm.
Specific tasks like process digital or online data, calculate financial data, analyze scientific data, and also things like create visual designs or displays or arrange displays. These tend to receive lower positive feedback scores.
So great with words, maybe not quite there yet with complex numbers or pictures.
Yeah, it seems to be the strong suggestion, yeah. While LLMs are amazing with language, they're not yet at the same level for intricate numerical work that needs deep context or highly visual creative tasks needing that subjective aesthetic judgment.
That's a very practical takeaway for anyone thinking about using AI for those things. It's a great writing partner, but maybe don't fire your lead designer or data analyst just yet.
Not based on this data, no. And you mentioned an interesting gap earlier about how people feel about AI directly giving support versus helping them give support. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, that was a really intriguing little nuance in the data. When the AI tries to directly provide support or advice, like in activities coded as provide support or encouragement to others or advise others on products or services, users actually tend to be less satisfied with the outcome.
Huh. Why do you think that is? It seems there might be a natural human preference, maybe even resistance, to receiving certain kinds of guidance, especially emotional support or complex advice, directly from a machine rather than another person.
Okay, but what about when it helps me give advice?
Now that's the flip side. When the AI helps the user provide support or advice to others, maybe by drafting a supportive message for them to send, or providing background info for advice they need to give user satisfaction is notably higher.
Interesting.
It suggests people are much more receptive to AI acting as an enabler, an information assistant for their own human interactions, rather than as a direct substitute for genuine connection, especially in more sensitive or advisory roles. It kind of underlines the value of the human touch, even when AI is providing powerful support behind the scenes.
That's a really significant distinction and very relatable. Now let's talk about that third metric, scope of impact. What does that tell us about how deeply AI can affect a work activity beyond just whether it succeeds or not?
Right. The scope of impact measures how much of the total work within a given task the AI is actually capable of assisting with or performing. When we look at this, we see some patterns that echo satisfaction, but also some key differences that tell us a lot about user behavior.
So where does AI have a high scope? Where can it handle a big chunk of the task?
For high-scope activities where AI can broadly assist, on the user goal side, we again see things like gathering information, writing, explaining. On the AI action side, it's things like providing information, advising, explaining. So for these core knowledge work categories, when AI gets involved, it tends to be able to cover a significant portion of what that activity actually entails. It's not just a tiny assist. It can genuinely contribute to a large fraction of the work.
Okay. And where's the scope lower?
Conversely, low-scope activities still include that complex data analysis and visual design we mentioned, but also, very clearly, tasks that require direct, nuanced interaction with other people in the real world. Things like confer with clients, coordinate with others to resolve problems, or investigate individuals.
Ah, the human interaction part.
Exactly. The AI can provide information about these interactions, maybe help prepare for them, but it can't meaningfully perform the actual human conversation, the negotiation, the investigation in a real-world context. Its scope is limited there.
This raises a really important question for me. It seems like people are actually using LLMs for tasks where the AI can have the broadest impact, the highest scope, even if it doesn't always nail the task with 100% success or perfect satisfaction. Why do you think that is? Is it because the potential benefit of that broad help outweighs the occasional mistake or the need for human oversight?
That is precisely what the study strongly suggests, and it's a crucial insight into how people are actually choosing to use AI. The researchers found something fascinating. The scope of impact is actually a better predictor of why people use AI for a given task than either the task completion rate or their stated satisfaction level.
Really? Scope matters more than success.
It appears so. There's a strong correlation, our 0.64, which is pretty high in this context, between how broadly AI can assist with a task, its scope, and how often users choose to involve AI in that task, its activity share. This implies users aren't just looking for perfect, isolated answers to narrow questions. They're choosing AI for tasks where it can provide broad utility and affect a large fraction of the overall work, even if it's not flawless every single time.
So even if I have to check its work, the fact that it did 70% of the research saves me so much time, it's worth it.
That seems to be the calculation people are making, yes. Take gathering information from various sources. The AI might not get every fact perfect, and the user probably still needs to verify things and synthesize it themselves. But its ability to rapidly scan, summarize, and present huge amounts of data dramatically impacts a very large part of that activity. That broad utility makes it incredibly valuable, despite potential imperfections.
So people are looking for comprehensive assistance, a powerful starting point, rather than just a quick, perfect answer to a tiny query. It's about leveraging AI for its ability to cover significant ground, even if you still need to steer and refine.
Exactly. It's about maximizing the leverage AI provides across the whole task.
Okay, we've looked at the what and the how well AI performs. Now let's get to the who. Who's actually feeling this AI ripple effect in the workforce right now? The study combines all these metrics into that overall AI applicability score for each occupation. Which jobs float to the top of that list? And were there any big surprises?
Yeah, when you look at the occupations ranked by this AI applicability score, the one right at the very top with an incredible 98% work activity overlap is interpreters and translators.
Okay, that makes total sense. Language models doing language tasks.
Exactly. That one feels pretty intuitive given the core capabilities of LLMs in understanding, generating, and converting human language.
All right. What else is up there?
Beyond that, you see a really strong presence of what we typically think of as knowledge work occupations. You've got writers and authors, historians, CNC tool programmers, which is interesting, political scientists, mathematicians, proofreaders, editors, public relations specialists.
So jobs involving a lot of research, analysis, writing, specialized information stuff.
Precisely. All areas where we've seen AI, especially LLMs, demonstrate strong capabilities. So no huge surprises in that cluster.
Okay, that group broadly fits the narrative of AI hitting knowledge work hard. But then I looked down the list and I saw some names that might make you scratch your head a bit at first. Sales representatives of services, customer service representatives, telephone operators, even passenger attendants. Sales. Customer service. That feels kind of counterintuitive, thinking of those as really high-touch interpersonal roles. So what's going on there? How are they so highly impacted?
This is genuinely one of the most fascinating aha moments in the study, I think. And it really challenges some common assumptions about which jobs AI affects. When you dig into why these occupations show such high AI applicability, the picture becomes crystal clear.
Okay, tell me why.
The top work activities that contribute most heavily to their high scores overwhelmingly involve delivering and communicating information to people. It's tasks like provide information to clients' customers, respond to customer problems or inquiries, provide general assistance to others, and provide information to the public.
It's the information transfer part of the job.
Exactly. Think about it. A huge part of a customer service rep's job is quickly finding complex product info, explaining company policies, answering common questions, drafting accurate responses. For a sales rep, it's providing detailed specs, outlining service benefits, maybe preparing proposals.
Right.
Now, the human still handles the really nuanced interpersonal stuff, the empathy, the negotiation, closing the deal. But AI's incredible ability to quickly access, synthesize, and communicate this vast amount of background information is a massive asset for these roles. It streamlines their work, freeing them up to focus more on the human side.
And passenger attendants, telephone operators, same deal. Lots of providing clear info and assistance.
Absolutely central to their roles. So this reveals that AI isn't just for coding or academic research. Its powerful communication ability makes it highly relevant across a much broader range of jobs than many people might initially think.
That makes perfect sense now. It's not replacing the whole interaction, but significantly boosting the information exchange within it, making those people more efficient, maybe even expanding what they can handle.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about the least impacted occupations? Who's at the bottom of the list? Largely untouched by conversational AI like Copilot.
The study clearly shows occupations requiring direct physical interaction with people or the environment have the lowest AI applicability scores. These fall into a few groups. First, jobs needing close physical human-to-human interaction, like nursing assistants or massage therapists. The human touch, empathy, physical presence, they're irreplaceable by a chatbot.
Right.
Then you have roles involving directly operating or monitoring heavy machinery, water treatment plant operators, pile driver operators, industrial truck and tractor operators.
Hands-on physical control.
Exactly. And of course, other forms of manual labor like dishwashers, roofers, maids, and housekeeping cleaners.
Okay, but it's really important to add the nuance here, right? This is only about large language models, like Copilot.
Absolutely crucial nuance. This study is specifically about LLMs, other kinds of AI advanced robotics, automation systems in factories, predictive maintenance AI. Those could certainly affect these more physically oriented jobs. But in terms of conversational AI's direct impact, these jobs are currently the least affected.
Got it. That clarifies the scope perfectly. So given these real-world findings on usage, how do they stack up against previous predictions about AI's impact on labor? Were the experts generally on the right track, or were there some major surprises when reality hit the data?
That's a really critical question for the whole field. How good are the predictive models? And the study directly compares its real-world usage data to predictions made by other prominent research, like that Elan Du et al. Paper from 2024, which estimated job exposure to LLMs based on human and AI judgments.
How did they compare?
What's actually quite remarkable is the strong overall alignment between the predictions and this real-world data. The correlation they found between those predictions and their observed AI applicability score at the individual occupation level is an impressive 0.73.
That's pretty high.
It is, and when you group jobs into the broadest categories, the major SOC groups, the correlation jumps to an incredibly high 0.91.
Wow.
So this indicates that, for the most part, predictions about which broad types of jobs would be most affected by LLMs are largely being borne out in actual usage. The academic models seem to have been fairly accurate in their general direction, identifying the main impact zones.
That's great validation for those predictive models. But I bet there are always interesting exceptions, right? Where reality kind of deviated from the predictions. What were some of those specific jobs where the predictions were maybe a bit off?
Oh, absolutely. Those divergences are where you often learn the most interesting things about real-world adoption. The study did highlight some occupations that showed higher AI applicability in reality than predicted.
Oh, like
Roles like market research analysts and those CNC tool programmers we mentioned earlier. This suggests that maybe the earlier predictions missed some of the practical ways LLMs could actually be used in these fields. Perhaps they underestimated the amount of text summarization or brainstorming involved in market research, or the potential for natural language to help generate CNC code.
So predictions might have overlooked some potential uses. What about the other way? Lower applicability than predicted.
Yep, there were also occupations with lower AI applicability than predicted, like survey researchers and physicists.
Why would that be? You'd think AI could help them.
And it probably could. This isn't necessarily because LLMs aren't well suited for their tasks. It's more likely because the highly specialized activities within these jobs are either too niche or maybe just not frequent enough within the general Microsoft Copilot dataset to meet the study's coverage thresholds.
So even if an LLM could help a physicist, if physicists aren't using general tools like Copilot for that specific complex task often enough, it just won't show up strongly in this broad usage data.
Exactly. It's a key reminder. This data set reflects actual usage by a wide range of people, not just theoretical capability or highly specialized, perhaps custom applications.
That makes sense. Okay, so if we connect all this back to the bigger picture, how does this AI applicability score correlate with things like how much a job pays or the education level it typically requires? Does higher pay mean more AI impact or less? Or is it just more complicated?
This is where the findings get particularly interesting and maybe quite surprising for a lot of people because they challenge some common assumptions. The study looked really carefully at the correlation between that AI applicability score and the average wage for each occupation. And what they found was a very small positive correlation, almost negligible, really.
Wait, really? So not a strong link between high pay and high AI impact?
Not a strong one, no, especially when you factor in how many people work in those jobs. The employment-weighted correlation was only 0.07, even without weighting, or if you exclude the very top 10% highest-paid jobs, it only gets up to about 0.13, which is still really weak.
That's remarkably weak. It kind of goes against that narrative you sometimes hear, that AI is either coming for the highest paid cognitive jobs or maybe only the lowest paid routine ones. It seems much more spread out.
Exactly. Contrary to some discussions predicting that higher wage, thinking intensive jobs would be way more affected, this study suggests there just isn't a strong, consistent relationship there right now.
Why is it so weak?
A big reason, especially for the weighted average, is those high employment occupations we talked about, like in sales and office and administrative support. These jobs, as we saw, have relatively lower average wages, but they show high AI applicability because they involve so much information processing and communication.
So the sheer number of people in those moderately paid but highly impacted roles kind of pulls the average down.
Precisely. It influences the overall weighted average significantly. So while yes, some individual high-wage jobs are highly impacted, the overall workforce relationship between current wages and current AI applicability isn't strongly positive. It paints a much more nuanced picture than simple rich get richer or poor get poorer stories based on AI alone.
That's a really critical piece of information for thinking about the broader economic effects. What about education? Does AI applicability lean more towards jobs needing college degrees or less educated roles?
When it comes to education, the picture is a little bit clearer, but still with important nuances. The study found that occupations which typically require a bachelor's degree do tend to have a slightly higher average AI applicability score, around 0.27, compared to jobs with lower educational requirements, which averaged around 0.19.
Okay, so a slight tilt towards higher education.
A slight tilt, yes. And that difference becomes a bit more pronounced if you look specifically at the AI action side where the AI is doing the task. That suggests AI might be performing slightly more complex tasks in roles typically requiring a degree.
But you said nuances.
Yes, absolutely crucial nuance. There is still substantial overlap in AI applicability across all educational levels. It is definitely not a clean divide where all college-educated jobs are impacted and all non-college jobs are not. Far from it.
So what does that slight tilt suggest?
It suggests, perhaps unsurprisingly, a slight tendency for AI's influence to be stronger in roles demanding higher education, likely because those jobs often involve more of the abstract knowledge work, the complex problem solving, the sophisticated communication that LLMs are particularly good at. But the main point is, AI's influence really does span across different educational levels, touching a very wide variety of roles.
Okay, this brings us to maybe the biggest question. Given everything we've discussed now, the capabilities, the usage patterns, the satisfaction, the impact across jobs, wages, education. Does this study actually tell us definitively if AI is mostly automating jobs away or just augmenting them, changing how they're done? Is it taking jobs or just reshaping them?
The paper is incredibly clear on this crucial point, and it's one that, frankly, often gets mangled in public discussion. The data they collected is usage data only. That's it.
Right, what people did.
Exactly. It meticulously shows what tasks AI can help with or perform and how people are interacting with it right now. But it absolutely cannot predict the downstream business decisions, the wider economic shifts, or the macro-level outcomes like definitive job loss or job creation. It's a snapshot of current capabilities, not a forecast for the labor market.
So it shows what's possible, not what will happen.
Precisely. And the authors use this really powerful historical analogy to explain why the ATM.
The automated teller machine.
Right. When ATMs first came out, they automated a core everyday task of bank tellers handling deposits and withdrawals. Now, based purely on that automation, you might have logically predicted a huge drop in bank teller jobs.
Seems reasonable.
But what actually happened? Well, ATMs made it cheaper to operate a bank branch because you needed fewer tellers for those basic transactions. So what do banks do? They open more branches.
Oh, interesting.
And the tellers who remained, their jobs shifted. They focused less on counting cash and more on higher value, relationship building activities, opening accounts, advising on loans, solving complex customer problems. And crucially, the total number of bank teller jobs actually increased for quite some time after ATMs were introduced, rather than decrease.
That's such a fascinating counterintuitive example. So the tech automates a task, but the human role shifts, adapts, and the overall demand for the job might even go up because of new efficiencies or business models enabled by the tech. It's dynamic.
It's incredibly dynamic. So this study gives us invaluable insights into AI's current capabilities and how it's being used right now. That's huge, but it doesn't and can't give definitive answers on job loss or creation. how occupations refactor their work responsibilities, as the paper puts it, in response to AI, or how entirely new jobs might pop up that we can't even imagine yet. That's a complex, unpredictable outcome that goes way beyond this usage data.
So this study is like a fantastic detailed map of the current territory, but not a prediction of the final destination.
That's a great way to put it. It shows the current frontier of AI's relevance to work, but the future of work itself is still being written, shaped by countless other economic and social factors.
What an incredibly insightful deep dive. Okay, let's quickly recap some of the main takeaways from this really important Microsoft research study.
Yeah, definitely. We saw that generative AI, specifically LLMs like Copilot, is truly acting like a general purpose technology. It's being adopted fast and is heavily used for and applicable to knowledge work and communication-focused occupations across a really broad range of industries.
And it's not just automating everything in sight. The data clearly shows AI often plays a supporting role, acting as a powerful advisor, a teacher, and explainer. Meanwhile, users are mostly leveraging it for fundamental tasks like gathering information, doing research, and of course, writing and editing content more efficiently.
Critically, we learned that AI seems to have a higher impact scope when it's assisting users with their tasks, rather than when it's trying to perform those tasks directly and completely on its own. This suggests users really value AI's ability to offer broad help across a task, even if it needs some human oversight.
And the real-world usage patterns turned out to largely align with earlier predictions about AI's impact, which is good validation for the models. But we also saw those fascinating nuances where some jobs were affected more or less than maybe experts had initially thought.
And perhaps most surprisingly for some listeners, we found only a very weak link between AI applicability and how much a job pays, and only a slightly stronger connection with education level. AI's current impact really seems to be spreading across various socioeconomic levels, not just concentrated at the top or bottom.
And the most important caveat worth repeating, this study gives us a crucial snapshot of actual AI usage, not a firm prediction of job losses or gains. That ATM analogy is powerful. Downstream economic impacts are complex, often surprising, and depend on much more than just the tech itself.
So this deep dive has really illuminated the current frontier of AI's relevance to how we work. But it leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? What about the next frontier? As AI capabilities keep evolving, which they're doing incredibly quickly, and as businesses actively figure out how to integrate these tools, how might your specific work responsibilities change? How might your job be refactored? Or maybe even more excitingly, what entirely new kinds of occupations might emerge that we can't even properly imagine today? Jobs born directly out of this new partnership between human ingenuity and artificial intelligence.
That is a truly provocative thought to leave everyone with. And it really encourages that continuous curiosity and adaptation we all need in this fascinating new era. Thank you so much for joining us on the Deep Dive.
My pleasure.
Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you on the next one.